Okay, who the hell is Marc Anthony Longwith and why should you listen to me? Okay, this is a question that a lot of you ask, and it's actually a question that I got asked last night by a buddy of mine. We were smoking some cigars in his penthouse overlooking beautiful Medellin. He brought this question up, and it was a brilliant question. So I'm like, let me address this online. I'm going to go through the high level stuff first, all the accolades and stuff that I think everybody wants to hear that makes me credible. I really think the real credibility is the story behind that, and I'm going to tell you my story. But just to get that out of the way, if you want to get through this video, listen, I started out my coaching business and I started working with high level Michelin star chefs, transitioning from being in corporate to doing their own thing and opening their own business. To do that, they had to reinvent themselves. Okay. Then I started working with professional, athletes, Major League Baseball players in the league for 15 years, coming home, reinventing themselves, and being a father, being a parent, being a normal member of society, no longer a player, right? I've worked with NHRA race car drivers. We've worked with executives in the high level spaces, and all of those individuals were going through transitions. And so what I feel like I'm an expert at is reinventing myself. And so when I went through all that, I had to reinvent myself again and move on to the online space. I opened up a business called Energetic Alignment Academy, and I worked with over 300 startups and helping these people build themselves into the people that could actually build a business. Right? It wasn't just about, here's how you build a business. Here's a funnel. Here's how you do a niche. Here's how you break down sales calls. This is about working with somebody to become a different person because that different person can show up and execute the way they need to. So that's really the high level accolade piece. But I want to tell you my story. And I want to start out. I'm not going to go super far back. I am going to go back, though, to about 14 years old. Okay. And so here's a little bit about my story. I was a very troubled young man, and I grew up in a family where my mother at that point had been married at least 3 or 4 times, lots of drama. Sisters were into drugs, cousins were drug dealers. Like my uncle went to the same prison my grandfather went to. And what happened was that was just my environment, right? And so I was in this place where I was lost. And I met a gentleman by the name of Joseph, and he became a good friend. And this gentleman was a shot caller for the white boys in the penitentiary. And he had just gotten out after 15 years. And this is all verified because my brother-in-law went to the penitentiary and knew who he was. And he's like, that guy is a legit guy. This was years later. So the long story short about this is I was lost, I was troubled, and I looked up to this person. So to me, my only goal at 14 years old was to go to the penitentiary, right? Like that was it. Like I just thought, like if I go to the penitentiary and I can handle that, I'm going to be the baddest motherfucker alive because I can handle the yard, I can handle the pressure. It's like PhD for a street kid, right? And over time, I started developing this relationship with him, and he started to see where my head was at and where I wanted to go. And I just remember this one night, we're driving in his truck, right? He was working for a plumbing company at the time, and he's dropping me off in my apartment. And he goes, look, man, I know that on TV you watch these movies and you got some gangbanger friends and you think it's cool to go to the penitentiary. But I can tell you right now, it's the last place you ever want to be. And I see where your brain's at. Your only job in life right now should be graduating high school and trying to sleep with the hottest cheerleader you can. This is what he told me. But I respected this guy so much. I mean, just imagine this 14-year-old boy. I don't really have a father presence that's solid. He's this monster of a guy, like 6'1", 6'2", 250 pounds, jacked, and he was just a beast. And you could see it. You could see that he was a real legit male that was aggressive and powerful and violent. And I respected that, especially because of my background and my uncles and my stepfather and just the way I grew up. And that was the first time I can remember reinventing myself. And during that time, I started to get into martial arts. And what happened was I channeled all of that energy into martial arts. And I became a professional MMA fighter. I didn't fight a ton of fights, but I fought some solid guys. I fought Jason Miller, Mayhem. I fought Jared Rawlings, J-Rock, right? Like I didn't even win those fights, but I got out there, I got in the cage, and I did something that I wanted to do. But I had a ton of distractions, right? Vegas is a very, very, very distracting place. So along that path, I wound up getting into the food and beverage industry, right? I was a very young man. I'm in Las Vegas. I'm in the food and beverage industry. And you want to talk about reinventing yourself. Listen, I know we've all climbed our own corporate ladders, but I was a glass polisher. And I used to polish glasses, hoping one day I could be a busboy. right? And then I become this busboy. I remember my first day, I do the typical busboy problem. I go to set the glasses down, the tray falls, goes everywhere. Everyone's like, go back to the polishing room. You're not ready. So long story short on that, I'm this glass polisher that is enabled to become a busboy finally, right? And then I become a food runner. And a food runner was a big deal back then because it was like an in between a server, and it was like the next step. And I food ran for years, right? And I worked at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Then I opened the Bellagio, and I worked at Olives. This is like, I mean, I'm this 19-year-old kid working at Bellagio. I mean, you want to talk about standards and being in this amazing space. It really shifted my mind on how I thought. And I was just a food runner in this awesome restaurant called Olives that overlooked the water. If you ever been to Bellagio, the water show, I go there today, 30 years later almost, right? And it still doesn't get old. Like it's the most beautiful, amazing thing. And I was shaping myself and growing. So I went from a glass polisher to a busboy to a food runner. I bar backed in between. Then I became a daytime lunch server, right? Then I had went from Bellagio to Win, and I became a nighttime food server, which was a big deal. You're talking about doubling your income. And then I went back to Bellagio and I started working in a little bit of nightlife. And then I worked my way up to a sommelier. And if you don't know what that is, it's a wine expert, and it's probably the highest level you can get to on the casino, or sorry, on the restaurant floor. Like this is a big deal. The wine guys are really revered. I get to wear a suit every day. I'm selling $1,000 bottles of wine. I'm managing a beverage program that's like $20 million. Like every step of the way, I reinvented myself and became somebody new. And that's what I'm really good at, is knowing what it takes to become the person to get to the next level. What I want to share with you though, that's really unique about my journey, is I never had any traditional training. And I had people that mentored me and guided me, and that was always what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for some school or certificate. I wanted to be with somebody who had been where I was and could take me to where I wanted to go. And to give you a little bit about that, I became a sommelier in the number one restaurant, and I did not have a certified sommelier certificate. Okay. But I loved what I did. I sought out the masters. Like there are master sommeliers. At that time, there was like 100. There might be 200 in the world today, and I learned from them, and I grew, and I allowed them to coach me and mentor me. And then I had an idea like, oh, I want to do something more. I want to be entrepreneurial. So a bunch of my buddies and we got together and we saved $1,000 a month for 4 years, and we opened up the number one brew pub in downtown Las Vegas. Mind you, we also had to raise a $500,000. We raised that money from the Light Group. If you're familiar with Vegas, they're a very big name. We raised that money from Tony Hsieh, God rest his soul, the owner of Zappos, who got bought out by Amazon. And we built the number one brew pub in downtown Las Vegas after we sat with the city attorney, right? And then we sat with the mayor and changed the laws to create a license that didn't even exist. And what's so amazing about this is that all of this was just us seeking wisdom, grinding it out. We had consultants for sure. We had coaches for sure, but nobody had any certified training. No one knew how to brew beer. I didn't know anything about brewing beer. I remember walking to the home brew shop and the guy's like, "You want to brew beer?" I'm like, "Bro, I'm opening a brew pub up in town." He's like, "I don't even know you. You don't even know how to brew beer. Here's some extract." And I'm like, "No, no, I don't want your extract. I want the real grain. I want to make real beer." This guy just looks at me like I'm crazy. 4 years later, he tells the story to everybody. Marc comes in, never brewed a beer in his life, says, "I want some grain. I'm brewing beer. I bought the best pots. I turned my garage into a brewery," right? I turned my fridge into a hop yeast fridge. And I built this out of my garage for 4 years. And it took us another 2 years to even create income after that. I didn't make a dime for 6 years. I was contributing my own money, my own blood, my own sweat, my own tears. From there, I became good enough that I was a consultant, and I consulted for Station Casinos, owned by the Fertitas, a $1 billion corporation, the guys that used to own the UFC. And my point about this whole story of mine is every step of the way, I didn't have any traditional training. I just had an undying spirit and a drive to make it work. And I sought out the right mentors and the right coaches and people that would support me on this path. I was just never a traditional guy. It's just not who I was. Then I decided, hey, I need to get a life coach because I'm unhappy with my life and I'm unhappy with my business. Okay. So what do? I get this guy, I pay him 10K. He changes my life. In the first week, he says, "Marc, I want to ask you a question. What do you really want, man?" I says, "I want to make a lot of money and I want to help a lot of people." And he's like, "Well, why don't you make a lot of money helping a lot of people?" I'm like, "Well, Way, that was his name. How the hell do I do that? He goes, did you ever consider coaching? And I said, man, I don't know anything about coaching. I just met you. He goes, well, tell me what you did this week. And I said, well, this buddy of mine's trying to get in shape. I drew him up a workout plan. I went to the gym with him. This other buddy, he's doing a business. I filed an LLC for him. I got another friend who's trying to do a brand. I filed a trademark for him. Did you charge any of those guys? I said, no, man, that's just what I do. He goes, exactly. That's literally who you are. That's just what you do. Like, I just, from the bottom of my heart, want to serve and see people do shit they never thought they could do. Like, that is what drives me. And so, out of the blue, I opened up a coaching business. I called it Business Jiu-Jitsu. It wasn't the best idea ever, right? But it got me started. And right away, I got a Michelin star chef who wanted to go from being a chef in corporate world, working for Hakkasan, to opening up his own spot. And we worked together. And I was in the black. Then I moved down to San Diego, started working with my baseball player from the Dodgers, started working with people from the NHRA, started working with high-level executives that were in the real estate development business in San Diego. And guess what happened now? Boom, it all blows up. I wasn't crushing it. I was making 25 grand a month. I made $25,000 in March of 2020. In April of 2020, I made 2,500 bucks. I lost 90% of my income. And so what did I do? I had to reinvent myself and had to figure it out. And what I did is I pivoted to the online space. Okay. I saw that there was a need. People were in this coaching industry, they were in this holistic space. And from scratch, knowing nothing about funnels, I didn't even know what a funnel was. I didn't know anything about marketing. I paired with the right person, got some more mentorship, and I opened up a business called Energetic Alignment Academy. And that business generated 7 figures. I could show you my Stripe account, a real 7-figure business in just under 3 years, right? With not having any clue about this industry. But what I knew is this: I knew I could help people. And I knew that if I had the right people to help me do all the things I couldn't do, I could figure it out. And that's what I've always done, is I figured it out and I've reinvented myself. So now I've decided to exit that business. And in exiting that business, 2 reasons. One, my business partner and I have different visions. So we want to go different directions. She loves AI. She's going in that direction. And I'm super stoked for her. Also, I wanted a grittier, tougher kind of person. That's why I want to work with athletes. That's why I want to work with successful entrepreneurs. That's why I want to work with executives, people that have already put the work in to get to where they are. Say, hey, let's take this thing to the next level. I was working with a very softer, energetic crowd, a lot of energy healers. I believe these people have the wisdom and energy to heal the people on the earth and make it a better place, but they didn't have as much grit as I wanted to work with to get the job done. Now, we did our best at filtering, but it wasn't going to be the pool of people that I just always wanted to work with and were going to take me to the next level. So I didn't actually start. Evolved Entrepreneur has been around. I've been doing one-on-one coaching since 2018. It was called Coaching Within, but Evolved Entrepreneur came to life when I was finally able to exit that business and focus my energy on it. And so what I'm doing now is I'm helping the entrepreneur. I'm helping the athlete, and I'm helping the executive that want to pivot and reinvent themselves. And what does that look like? When you have an athlete that's in the league for 30 years, 25 years, 35 years, whatever league it is, and they come home, how many life skills do you think they have? Their job is to be the best at their sport. How are they with their families? They might be great. It might suck. How are they with their own personal inner selves? I don't know. They're so busy focusing on being the best at their sport. Those are the gentlemen and women that I want to work with. And then I look at the entrepreneur. I want to work with these entrepreneurs that are saying, hey, like, I got to pivot into a new industry like I did several times, or I actually just want to shift. I don't have to, but I want to become somebody different. And an example I have is a buddy of mine. He's 40 years old. He has a phenomenal brokerage. It's crushing it. He's able to put a CEO in, and now he's walking away and he's going, wait a minute. My whole life has been this real estate brokerage. My whole life has been this identity. My whole life has been just making money. And now I'm in a position, who the hell am I going to be in this next chapter of my life? And that's the type of person that I want to help, because I have been through it so many times that I can help that person skip tracks, skip years, and connect with themselves. Because all this work just isn't about a formula and a strategy and a roadmap. Anybody can give you that, but you've got to dig deep within you to see, why you're doing what you're doing. Where are the limiting beliefs? Where are you afraid, man? Where are you scared? What have you not looked at? Where are your blind spots? And then you have the executive who knows he's meant for more, who knows maybe she's meant for more, right? But they don't know how to do it. Listen, you can run $1 billion business as a CEO. The moment you switch over to sell your own thing, it's like everything inside of you, your worthiness, your value, your beliefs, they just get completely and totally triggered. It's crazy. And these are the people I want to help. Primarily because I like working with higher end individuals because it's just how I think. I'm bougie. I've always wanted to be the best. I've always wanted to do the best. When I was younger, I wanted to be in special ops. That didn't happen. So I rose through the ranks of the number one. I worked for 5-star, 5-diamond, Emerald Lagasse, Todd English, Steve Wynn, the Wynn Hotel, the best restaurants. I always wanted to be the best in whatever industry that I was in. Right? And so I want to work with these people that have that drive, that type of individual. And I want to show them that just because you've identified as this person for your whole life, it doesn't mean you have to be that person forever. And it doesn't mean that you can't do something different. What it means is you have to dig deep and you have to become somebody else. And doing that, I'm just going to be honest with you, it's not fucking easy. It takes a lot of work. And if you think you're going to do it alone, good luck. Because I can tell you this, the trailblazer I was, never getting a certificate, all those things, I always had help. One thing my mother taught me, she's like, you always seek wisdom. I always seek coaches. I always seek mentors. And we always seek consultants in the business because that was the best way to skip tracks and get to where you want to go because you just get there 10 times faster. Right? And you get there in a way that is more meaningful because I think that efficiency is something that I value. Sure, it's great to struggle, and I think you need struggle. But if you can do something efficient and get it done the way you want and get to where you want to go, why the hell would you put yourself through all that struggle? Because guess what? Even if you get to where you want to go, I promise you there's going to be struggles. We all know that. So I'm all about efficiency. This is why I do what I do. This is why I believe you should listen to me. Not counting the completely unbelievable life I've had in Vegas with my struggles with addiction, my struggles with women, my struggles with just the party scene, with spending money, with all of these things that I've gone through in life that I've overcome. I've had to reinvent myself every single step of the way. I don't look anything like I did when I was younger. And I'm not talking physically. I mean, I literally was a completely different person. And so not only do I have the grit and the life experience, but I do have the accolades. And I also have the ability to reinvent myself on every single chapter.